Hi, my name is Tracey Levine, and I am here to talk about my forthcoming book, At the Diner in Heaven. Um, hi everyone. I'm coming to you from my green writing chair. I know that's a little cliche. I've had this chair for like 20 years, and pretty much I've done all of my writing in it. Um, and it was thrifted, so I'm sure it's a lot older than that, and it seemed appropriate to make this video from this chair. So At the Diner in Heaven is a collection of 11 fictional stories. Um, and it's hard to kind of like, well, what's the book about? A lot of things. But I think some of the main themes are exploring interpersonal connections with complicated romantic and familial and platonic relationships. There's some childhood trauma. There's some humor. I have like kind of a Freaky Friday moment at some point in the book. Um, and there are a lot of stories that deal with women and reproductive rights and also with domestic abuse. So, some heavy topics. All the stories aren't, really, really heavy though. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the reason why I chose the title story at the Diner in Heaven, which is this first story in the book. And I'm going to read to you from that. Um, it refers to the Edward Hopper painting Nighthawks, which is really famous and popular. You probably know it's like a wide view outside of a diner. And inside, there are two people sitting and sort of chatting, and one person that's lonely and kind of like a disgruntled waiter slash bartender or whomever. Um, and I just thought that, first of all, I always thought that that was like a really lonely and complicated painting. And when I was writing the title story, which is very much autobiographical fiction, a lot of the stories in this are to some extent. I think this one is the most autobiography that's included in any story. But I kind of use it as a metaphor for the main character's struggles with addiction and connection and disconnection. And it takes place at a Chinese restaurant. So do I have to say anything else? I don't know. I'm really excited. Thank you, Main Street Rag, and everybody for helping to get my book published. I really appreciate everything, and I really hope that you will read my book. And I am going to include some information to follow me on Instagram or Facebook in the comments. Um, under this video. So let me read. I'm going to read. Yeah. So this is the title story, and I'm going to read about the first 2 pages of it. And then I'm going to read another story, actually, the last story in the book, um, just a few pages of that as well. So this first story is called At the Diner in Heaven. My dad prefers Chinese food. We're at his latest favorite restaurant. We've eaten here before. It's orange and overly decorated with paper creations. Some are two and some are three-dimensional. We sit at a booth by a window overlooking the street, and after a mere 30 seconds, my dad tags a waiter with a pointed finger and waves him over like he's in trouble. He tells him that he wants a Coke, then looks at me. I tell the waiter I want the same. My dad has grown to like abusing waiters. He proceeds to tell me what he did during the day, about the laundry, the dishes, a morning movie he watched, even about how he'd broken his new moccasins. I haven't gotten a word in since the car. I drive. He doesn't. Hasn't since the DUI. I sink my chin into my hands, fixating on him as he talks. He likes to talk and likes that I listen. I'm really not listening that closely, but thinking of what I have to do after I leave him, of what I have to do with my life. I think of how thin my dad is as I get back into the present moment. I see his broken teeth that have become somewhat cute to me. His wild wisp of white hair in front is like that of a witch in a horror film he's shown me. I want to tell him that I'm not like him. I always want to do this when he talks about his day like it matters. He continues, and I continue to go in and out of listening. I want to order the orange chicken, but some other smell is driving me crazy when his cell phone rings. He gets excited when it rings, keeps it on the loudest volume, and pretends he can't find it in his pants so that the James Bond theme can last a little longer. He finally answers it and says, "Greetings," instead of hello. I crunch down on some mildly greasy Chinese noodles, hearing him say a few yeahs and a sure. Then he hangs up and tells me that his friend John, who lives across the street above the laundromat, is going to join us. He points out the window at the laundromat, and I see that there is certainly an apartment above it. He likes me to see him with his friends, so I don't worry. Then John walks in like he was hiding somewhere just outside. I've never met him before, although I've heard my dad talk about him. He's a massive balloon losing its shape, and he takes ginger steps as he moves inside the restaurant and over to our table. He's all nerves when he sits down. His head twitches, but I know that it's not because he's used that day. All of my dad's AA friends, and even my dad, have tics. Some are physical, and others verbal. My dad sometimes will stop dead in the middle of a sentence, stuck on the sound for many seconds, like he's being reprogrammed. He'll then finish the sentence like it never happened. John reaches over and shakes my hand, then bows his head repeatedly like he's some sort of clergy. I look at my dad while he's doing this, while he still has my hand. My dad is looking at John with a proud smirk on his face. The I like everyone here expression. John flags down the waiter, just like my dad did, and when he trudges over to the table, unabashedly showing annoyance, I look away from the table and out of the window at the darkened street. In the brightness of the laundromat, I see a wall of washers with glass doors like empty sockets. We order our food, and then my dad brags about my recent scholarship to graduate school. John replies, "Oh, wow, great. Can see you're so proud, Chuck." Only the AA people call my dad Chuck after his favorite actor. Otherwise, he's Alan. I don't get it, but I've decided to let my dad's sober life, no matter how strange it may be, just be without my judgment, as long as it stays sober. My dad and John gossip a little about people in their program. Some guy has started obsessively collecting weird pornography in which people wear homemade masks, kind of like paper mache, my dad says, and the likenesses of anything from jungle animals to cartoon characters. My dad and Steve share a quiet moment, recalling the weird porn in their minds. I asked them to tell me more about it, but my dad says that it's not worth it. The porn collector is a sponsor for three others, which concerns my dad. John agrees with a nod. I finish my Coke. I stare at John, sizing him up. And then my dad abruptly asks me, "Can you believe this guy used to use heroin and then go gambling at the blackjack table every night?" John, like a confronted child, remorsefully looks long into the orange tablecloth and says, "Seems like a million years ago." He shakes his head and continues, like somebody else. My dad responds, "I know, you don't have to tell me, but now you're working on a professional career in comedy. You should hear his impersonations, hun." John tells me that he's an accountant and has been an accountant for 30 years. My dad has always been a supporter, encouraging talent. I've often wondered about his scale and what it's based on. As a girl, he'd always tell me I was talented and I knew it. Now, when I send him something I've written, I know he skims it at best when he tells me it's really great, like I'm a real author. They bring out our food, and when the orange chicken is before me, I let its aroma into my nostrils. My dad's oohs at his pepper steak while John digs into his lo mein. When I take the first bite of my chicken, which is too hot and singes the roof of my mouth, I start to talk as I chew. I tell them that I've started packing for school and that I'm excited. They nod, look up at me for seconds, then continue to eat their meals. After I stop speaking, my dad asks, "So you watch any old movies lately, hun?" So that's the beginning of that one. And now I'm just going to read you quite a different story. So I mentioned that I do write a lot of autobiographical fiction, and this is based on some experiences I had in an all-girls Catholic high school. Um, the other thing to know is that the title comes from a Crosby, Stills, and Nash song, and I forget whether we're going to cover that. Anyway, it's called "You Are What You Are." Light pours into Judy's bedroom window as if it's coming from a tipped pitcher. Michelle's on her elbows, back arched to the window, sunning. It saturates her bare, pregnant stomach. Judy sits behind her on the bed, also tilted back, but just slightly, struggling with her own very pregnant front. Judy slowly gets up, goes to her closet, and opens it. Stuff falls out and bounces off her protruding belly. The percussion makes Michelle sound Judy ignores the spilled items and digs in, has to come to the closet with the side of her body so that the bump isn't in her way. When she finds what she's looking for, a plastic kitty record player, she clumsily removes it and disturbs more stuff in the closet that rolls out into the room. Michelle says, Jesus Christ, Judy, it's like a fucking avalanche. Judy backs up with the record player resting on her front. She says, it looks like my closet puked. Michelle gets up and the bed springs quiver and ping repeatedly like tinny, faraway music. She pulls her enormous shirt taut over her belly and says, sometimes you're so fucking dumb, Judy. Judy drops the record player by a wall socket, then uses the bed to lower her body to the thinning carpet. Just below a half squat, she lets herself fall. When she lands, the firmness moves through her middle like a flash of heat, and she tells Michelle, you're pretty dumb too, you know. Judy plugs the record player in and sets it up for play. She inches over to her bed and bends closer to the ground. She pulls a meager stack of records out from under it and feels she's being watched. She looks up to see Michelle leaning back on the dresser with her arms crossed over her breasts. Michelle demands, what you got there? Judy responds, you don't like them, then slowly inches her way back to the record player with the stack under one arm. She lays the record beside the player and takes the one on top in her hands. She puts the sheathed record to her face and inhales deeply. Michelle comments, I thought you got over that phase. Jesus, I don't want to hang out with you if you're going to be a freak show again. Judy doesn't respond because she too was disgusted by her former behavior in the 5th and 6th months of her pregnancy, when she couldn't resist smelling trash cans, gasoline, nail polish remover, and some cleaning products. She even had cravings for eating small white pieces of paper. She cried for most of those months, and Michelle, although she never missed a chance to criticize her, demanded that she stop crying and often ripped bottles of Lysol from her hands. But most importantly, she always came back. By the time Judy had an appointment with her doctor, who said it was normal for some to behave that way, it was all about over. But the record in her hand doesn't ignite those cravings. Michelle assumes the widest stance she can manage facing the mirror. She fixes her bangs around a roller brush. She prefers them to be flawlessly cylindrical so that when the hairspray dries, the shape picks up light in a line across the front of them. Her bangs are always like this, and when Judy first saw her, she questioned whether they were hair. Judy watched from a desk as Michelle told Sister Maureen Michael, the assistant principal, who was trying to shuffle her into the room that Judy and the others were already in, that she didn't belong with a bunch of losers and that she was being discriminated against. The numb was relentless, nudged her beyond the threshold, and shut the door. All 6 girls in the room were pregnant and showing, and on that first day, Michelle managed to insult every one of them, while Mrs. Gruber, the guidance counselor, tried hard to make a case for all of them being removed for a period each day from the general population to talk straight, as she put it, about their lives, fears, and goals. All of the girls were quiet, gazes to the floor, with occasional sideward and upward glances, except for Michelle, who seemed the only one who didn't want to disappear. Michelle progressed emphatically every time she interrupted Mrs. Gruber during those sessions with things like, aren't we sinners? Aren't you a sinner for even listening to us and all of our sins? And once to Jenny, a girl who was infamous for burping whole sentences in the cafeteria, I don't want to sit next to this earthquake, Miss Gruber. She'll make me miscarry. And to Liz, a notorious temper, don't mistake that greasy hair for takeout Chinese noodles, just trying to be helpful. Liz threw a pen at Michelle's face, and the tip darted her cheek with blue. Mrs. Gruber walked down the aisle, stood between them, and continued her speech about how they were not being removed because she or anyone else wanted to exclude them from the school community, but because they all needed special help. When the bell rang the first day, Michelle turned around to Judy and the desk behind her and said, I didn't know vampires could get pregnant. Judy looked right into her eyes, something she hadn't done for a while with anyone then, and Michelle did the same and waited. Judy got up and left without responding, and later that day, Michelle found her walking home. Michelle said to her, you got to admit, you have the palest skin in the school, like you have no blood in you or something, and your hair is black. Judy stopped walking, looked at her again, and said, I don't care what you or any of the other idiots in that school think of me. Michelle changed the subject and asked, "How far along are you?" That's all I have. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for listening. And I hope that you will enjoy At the Diner in Heaven.